A real fabulous history of a congregation that really had its own sort of self-determination and motivation, and really took care of its Jewish self without professionals to put that onto. And I think that really speaks very highly of the founders. You know, stories of founders doing religious school in the kitchen, and our first president, and just I think it's really quite a miracle what they pulled off. And there was a real commitment, obviously, of those early families to keep the synagogue going. I can't even imagine what the efforts must have been like, and what it called upon from those those founding members and those earliest families.
I can go way, way back, because I came here in 1940, and we had a small Reform congregation. We were serviced by a Rabbi, Hans Zucker, who was a refugee from Germany. And but there were so few of us that we really couldn't support him and his wife and children properly. So we found him a position in Alameda, California.
And then we affiliated with Temple Emmanuel, that was an established traditional congregation. And the affiliation went through as a conservative congregation. And I believe that started in about 1946 and continued on until April of 1962. And then the rabbi who was in charge at the time of the breakup in 1962 left so much to be desired, his personal ethics and so forth, that a group of us decided to walk out of a congregational meeting that evening when they decided to give him another contract.
Well, we all walked away from Temple Emmanuel in the spring of 1962.
There was my husband, Louis Dickens, and I, my sister and her husband, Leah and Bill Garrell, Garell, Mary and Jake,
Garfinkel,
and Judy and Sam Catter, and
Jean and Bee Brown,
Stan
and Fran
Fielding, and Becky and Milton Gumbert. Milton Gumbert was our choir master, and that was one of the things that really held our congregation together, was the choir, and they left.
Come summertime, we all, the few families of us that all left at the same time, were all officers, and the people who were really involved in the workings of the temple. And we were sitting on the patio of our house on Georgia Place one day in June, having a drink and wondering where we were going to have high holiday services come September. And we talked about going to Sacramento or going to the Bay Area. And then Jean Brown, I think it was, why don't we start our own temple? And from there it went.
And we started talking about how could we go about creating our own congregation once again. And there was even talk of keeping it in the conservative movement, but we felt that wouldn't be fair to Temple Emmanuel to have two conservative congregations, and some of us preferred, myself included, and my husband and a few others who were present that day, concluded that we should contact the Reform umbrella organization in San Francisco, the Union of American Hebrew Congregations. And so one of the gentlemen present was Eugene Brown. He immediately got on the telephone with Rabbi Joseph Glazer, who was the supervisor of that office, director of that office, and Well, it was, I don't think it was more than a week before Joe Glazer came up here to organize us in a hurry.
So about a month after they formed, I was there. I said, all right, I'm yours. At first, I decided to stay with Temple Emmanuel because my son was learning Hebrew and we wanted to have a bar mitzvah for him. But George's uncle, Louis Dickens, was the president, one of the founders of Temple Sinai. Louis came to the house every day and berated me, screamed, yelled, hollered, how can you embarrass me this way? And within a month afterward, we said, all right, we will leave Temple Emmanuel and join Temple Sinai if people will come and teach Hebrew to my son.
Ethel is the one who really started the religious school because her son needed training for his bar mitzvah. So she taught herself, and she ran the school in her kitchen, and she's still teaching in the religious school.
I had to start learning Hebrew on my own so that I could teach my son to become bar mitzvahed. He was bar mitzvahed in 1964.
Rabbi Glazer telephoned me after he had been here, and he said, you can't have a congregation without a religious school. So I said, I'll put one together.
So I quickly got on the phone and got hold of a couple of women who were school teachers, and they said yes, they'd be glad to help with it.
We had our first religious school at the YMCA, wasn't it? YMCA. But they, on a Sunday morning, they had no heat there, so the poor children and the teachers almost froze to death.
Our very first High Holy Day service was held in the Virginia room of the Masonic Temple that September of 1962. And it was a big success. We had quite a nice crowd.
Well, we started out at the Masonic Temple at first, on the third floor there in the Blue Room, which was a beautiful room and lent itself very, very nicely to our services. And we had visiting rabbis that came. I'll never forget the first service that we had, the first High Holiday service. I was in charge of the music.
Mary was in charge of the record to be sure to
And
have
it
the
was
needle in the
dark.
right
I was
place.
way in the back in the dark and trying to find the place where Jan Pierce started to sing Kol Nidre on this
I was helping her.
long playing record on my machine. And luckily I found just the right place and everybody.
The story of our tours is an interesting one too, because when Temple Bethor joined with Temple Emmanuel, we naturally took all our artifacts and whatever we had as a congregation with us over there. And so when Temple Sinai formed, we asked for our tours back, but Temple Emmanuel wouldn't give them to us. And so through the efforts of Jean and Louis, we went down to San Francisco and picked up a Torah at a temple there who said they lent us one, but years later when we wanted to return it, they said it was a gift. So we had that Torah, and just that one. And finally, one of the presidents at Temple Emmanuel saw to it that we were given our original 2 Torahs.
We decided to build a building because we had had services in the Masonic Temple, we'd had services in the Musicians Hall, and we decided that we needed a permanent home. We needed a home for our religious school, for our functions, and we knew that in order to grow, we had to have better facilities.
At that time we had about 45 or 50 family members of the temple. So it involved a lot of fundraising. We went to the entire community for our fundraising. We couldn't do it just we few. So we had some pretty good fundraisers in our group at the time.
Did it for $45,000, and the addition cost $200,000. A few years later.
And what did your grandma tell you about the starting of this temple?
Well, they said that they really thought that they needed a synagogue in Reno, and so they just saw an ad for this piece of land, and it just looked great for their needs, so they got it.